Stick to serving coffee. You're nothing but a token hire. Gregory Hale's voice carried across the room as he smirked, lifting the cup above Vanessa's head, then tipping it. Hot coffee poured over her hair and down her blouse, soaking through instantly. The heat burned sharp against her skin, but she didn't move. Laughter followed, some nervous, most of it not, and someone whispered, "She can't even get that right." Gregory stepped closer, watching it drip onto the floor like it entertained him. "You're here to serve, not think," he added under his breath. She steadied her breathing, her hands still at her sides. To him, she was just someone he could humiliate without consequence. What Gregory didn't know, what no one in that room understood, was that he had just humiliated the one person who could decide his future before the day was over. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. Vanessa Brooks stepped into the elevator of Halcyon Global. Her simple gray dress and sensible shoes, a stark contrast to the designer outfits of the two women already inside. The leather portfolio tucked under her arm contained more than anyone realized, but the plastic intern badge clipped to her collar was all they saw. "Excuse me," one woman said, barely glancing at Vanessa. "Could you make sure someone cleans up the coffee spill on the third floor? It's been there all morning." The second woman laughed. "And tell maintenance the temperature is freezing again." It's like they never listen. Vanessa nodded once, her expression neutral. "I'll be sure the right people get the message." They exited without thanking her. Vanessa remained still, watching their reflections in the polished elevator doors. She noted their department badges, their names, the casual dismissal in their tone. Information gathered, filed away. When the doors opened on the marketing floor, the noise hit her first. Phones ringing, keyboards clicking, forced laughter. The space was open concept, with glass offices lining the perimeter. Power on display. A cluster of young people, clearly the other interns, huddled near a conference room. They clutched welcome packets and coffee mugs emblazoned with the company logo, their faces eager and nervous. Gregory Hale stood before them, tall and imposing in his tailored suit. His smile was practiced, reaching everyone but his eyes. He gestured broadly as he spoke about opportunities and growth potential. "Halcyon only selects the best and brightest. You're here because we see potential in each of—" His words halted when he spotted Vanessa approaching. His smile tightened, eyes narrowing slightly. "Are you lost?" he asked loudly enough for everyone to hear. Vanessa extended her hand. "Vanessa Brooks. I'm part of the internship program." Gregory didn't take her hand. He looked down at his tablet, scrolling with exaggerated movements. "Brooks! Brooks! Ah, yes. He paused for effect. Mature candidate." Snickers rippled through the group. "Are you certain you're in the right department? HR sometimes makes these mix-ups." "I'm certain," Vanessa replied evenly. Gregory's jaw tightened. "Well then, welcome aboard." The words fell flat. "Everyone else, grab your welcome packets and follow me to the strategy room. We're jumping right into campaign development." He turned to Vanessa. "Ms. Brooks, we need the supply closets organized before the quarter audit. They're down the hall. Once you're finished, the break room needs attention." One young intern with blonde hair raised her hand. "Should I help her instead of joining the strategy session? I have experience with—" "Absolutely not, Amber," Gregory cut in. "We need fresh minds in that room. Ms. Brooks understands her assignment." Amber's cheeks flushed as she avoided Vanessa's eyes. Vanessa stood perfectly still, her face composed. "Where are the supply closets, Mr. Hale?" His smile widened. "Ask around. Part of the job is figuring things out on your own. Initiative and all that." As the group moved toward the strategy room, Gregory called back. "Oh, and we'll need coffee service for the executive meeting at 11. You'll find the cart in the kitchen." More laughter followed, not quite under breath. "The mature intern," someone whispered. Vanessa noticed a woman watching from a glass office. Elaine Porter, head of HR according to the nameplate. Their eyes met briefly. Elaine's expression remained neutral before she deliberately turned away, closing her office blinds. From the finance department across the floor, an older man with silver hair and tired eyes caught Vanessa's attention. Daniel Reeves. He offered a small, apologetic smile before dropping his gaze back to his computer. Vanessa took a deep breath and began methodically searching for the supply closets. She found them eventually, 3 different ones, all in disarray, clearly a task meant to consume hours of her time. She worked efficiently, her movements precise. All the while, she observed, who spoke to whom, who avoided eye contact, which employees hurried past her as if she were invisible, which ones watched Gregory with fearful deference. At 10:45, she headed to the kitchen to prepare the coffee service. "Don't bother with the good beans," a kitchen worker advised quietly. "They never appreciate the difference anyway." Vanessa thanked him and selected the premium coffee regardless. She arranged everything meticulously on the silver cart: cream, sugar, stirrers, napkins, cups. At precisely 10:55, she wheeled the cart toward the executive conference room. Through the glass walls, she could see Gregory holding court, the younger interns hanging on his every word. Executives in expensive suits filed in, claiming seats at the polished table. Gregory spotted her approaching and smirked. He walked to the door and held it open with a flourish. "Finally," he announced loudly. "Ladies and gentlemen, coffee service has arrived, courtesy of our most experienced intern." All eyes turned to Vanessa as she pushed the cart into the room, the stage now set for what Gregory clearly intended to be her public humiliation. Vanessa wheeled the coffee cart toward the head of the table. The conference room hummed with energy as department heads, assistants, and the favored interns leaned forward in their seats. Gregory Hale stood at the front, laser pointer in hand, gesturing at projected charts that showed rising profit lines. "As you can see, third-quarter projections are exceeding expectations in almost every department," Gregory announced, his voice carrying that particular tone of someone who took credit for others' success. The room nodded in appreciation. A few assistants scribbled notes. Amber, the young intern Gregory had favored earlier, smiled brightly each time he glanced her way. Vanessa approached quietly, lifting the coffee pot and a cup from the cart. She poured carefully, making sure the liquid didn't splash, and placed the steaming cup on the table near Gregory's presentation materials. Her movements were precise, professional, nearly invisible, exactly how people like Gregory preferred service staff to behave. She had just set down the cup when Gregory turned suddenly, his arm swinging wide as he made a grand gesture about record-breaking performance. His hand hit the cup. Hot coffee splashed across Vanessa's white blouse and onto her wrist. The liquid burned against her skin, but she didn't cry out. The cup clattered to the floor. A few gasps echoed through the room. Then silence. "Oh!" Gregory exclaimed, his voice pitched with fake concern. "What a mess!" Totally accidental, of course, but his eyes told a different story. The slight curl at the corner of his mouth, the way he stepped back to survey the damage. This was no accident. Someone snickered from the back of the room. Then another. Soon, a ripple of uncomfortable laughter spread across the table. Not everyone joined in. Some looked down, embarrassed to witness such cruelty. But enough people laughed to make it clear which way the power flowed. "I'm so sorry," Vanessa said quietly. "I'll clean this up immediately." "Yes, you should," Gregory replied, louder than necessary. "And do try not to ruin the carpet, too. It's imported." More laughter. "The thing about experience," Gregory continued, addressing the room while Vanessa stood dripping coffee, "is that it should come with grace under pressure. Wouldn't you agree, Ms. Brooks?" Vanessa looked directly at him, her face calm, her voice steady. "May I please have a towel?" Her composure seemed to irritate Gregory. He'd wanted tears, embarrassment, or anger, some reaction he could mock further. Her dignity denied him that pleasure. "Of course," he said, his smile tightening. "Maybe use this as a learning opportunity. Next time, stand farther away from important people when serving." Daniel Reeves rose from his seat at the far end of the table. "I'll show her where the first aid supplies are," he offered quietly. "That coffee was quite hot." Gregory waved them away. "Yes, yes. We have actual work to continue here." As Daniel guided Vanessa toward the door, Gregory called after them, "And have someone clean this up right away." The meeting resumed behind them, Gregory's voice booming as if nothing had happened. In the break room, Daniel pulled paper towels from the dispenser and ran cold water over a clean dish towel. "Here," he said, handing Vanessa the cold compress. "For your wrist. It looks like it might blister." "Thank you," Vanessa said, applying the cold towel to her skin. Daniel fidgeted with the coffee maker, clearly uncomfortable. "I should report this. What Gregory did, that was deliberate. We both know it." "Would reporting it change anything?" Vanessa asked, dabbing coffee from her blouse. Daniel's shoulders slumped. "Probably not. Elaine from HR has buried complaints about Gregory before. They play golf with the same board members." "Then I'd prefer to see how deep this goes," Vanessa said, studying the stain spreading across her blouse. Daniel looked at her curiously. "You're not really just an intern, are you?" Vanessa offered the smallest hint of a smile. "I'm interested in how this office behaves when it believes no one important is watching." Daniel's eyes widened slightly. "I see," he said, though it was clear he didn't fully understand. Only that there was more to Vanessa Brooks than met the eye. Before Daniel could ask more questions, footsteps approached the break room. Gregory appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame with casual arrogance. "Clean yourself up quickly, Brooks," he announced. "You'll be presenting in the next meeting." Vanessa turned to face him. "Presenting what, exactly?" Gregory's smile didn't reach his eyes. "The quarterly diversity and inclusion numbers, of course. Seems fitting, doesn't it? The meeting starts in 30 minutes. I'm sure a woman of your experience can figure it out." He turned to leave, then looked back. "Oh, and don't expect any materials. Initiative is key to success here at Halcyon. Show us what you're made of." With that, he disappeared down the hallway, leaving Vanessa and Daniel in stunned silence. 15 minutes later, Vanessa walked back into the conference room. Her blouse was still damp, a large coffee stain spreading across the front like a dark map. She'd done her best to clean up in the women's restroom, but the damage was obvious. Heads turned as she entered, some expressions curious, others amused. Gregory stood at the head of the table, a wide smile stretching across his face. He held a thick black binder in his hands, tapping it against his palm. "Ah, our intern has returned," he announced. Just in time. The younger interns shifted in their seats, eyes darting between Vanessa and Gregory. Relief washed over their faces. Today's victim had been chosen, and it wasn't them. The door opened quietly as Elaine Porter slipped in, taking a seat in the back row. Her face revealed nothing as she crossed her legs and folded her hands in her lap. Watching. Waiting. Gregory held out the binder as Vanessa approached. "Since you're so eager to contribute," he said, keeping his grip until the last possible second, "why don't you walk us through the regional growth forecast for Q3? He released the binder just as she reached for it, nearly causing it to drop. "Page 47, he added loudly. "Take your time. We're all very interested in your expertise." Muffled laughter rippled through the room. Vanessa opened the binder calmly, flipping to the indicated page. Her eyes scanned the charts and columns of numbers, moving quickly but methodically. "Whenever you're ready," Gregory prompted, impatience edging his voice. Some of us have actual deadlines. Vanessa looked up. I noticed several inconsistencies in the vendor reporting, she began, her voice steady and clear. The Northwest Territory shows a 22% growth rate, but the supporting data from our three main clients there only accounts for 14%. The room fell silent. She turned a page. The projected earnings from the Westlake account are inflated by approximately $340,000 compared to their contractual commitments. Her finger traced down another column. And these reimbursement patterns for executive travel show irregular timing that doesn't align with our regional conference schedule. Daniel straightened in his chair, his eyes widening slightly as he studied the pages from across the table. In fact, Vanessa continued, if you compare the vendor allocation on page 52 with the forecasted revenue, there's a discrepancy of nearly— That's enough, Gregory snapped, stepping forward. His face had reddened. Where did you get this information? Vanessa looked at him calmly. From the binder you just handed me. Impossible, he said, snatching it back. You couldn't have analyzed this in seconds. You've clearly stolen someone's work and memorized it to make yourself look good. He turned to the room. This is exactly the kind of disruptive conduct we don't tolerate here. Trying to undermine team projections with no context or understanding. I was only responding to your request to present the forecast, Vanessa said quietly. No, you were overstepping, Gregory's voice rose. Trying to show off instead of learning your place. A young man near Gregory chuckled. Suddenly acting like she's the executive, he said, just loud enough to be heard. Maybe we should all call her boss now. Nervous laughter spread through the room, but Vanessa noticed how some eyes dropped to the table, unwilling to meet her gaze. Fear. Not of her, but of something else. I think we've had enough disruption for one morning, Gregory announced. He nodded toward the door. Ms. Brooks, you can wait outside while we finish our actual business. Vanessa closed her notebook and stood. Elaine, Gregory called to the back of the room. Make sure this goes in her file. Disruptive conduct and inability to follow simple directions. Elaine nodded, her face a professional mask. Of course. Vanessa walked out, feeling eyes on her back as the door closed behind her. She stood in the hallway, reviewing mental notes of what she'd seen in those few minutes with the financial data. Footsteps approached, and Daniel appeared beside her, glancing over his shoulder to ensure they were alone. Those numbers you flagged, he whispered urgently. About the reimbursements and the Westlake account? I've been tracking similar discrepancies for months. He hesitated, then leaned closer. I think they might connect to missing funds from 3 prior quarters. Vanessa met his eyes. How much is missing? Enough that someone should be worried right now, Daniel replied, his voice barely audible. And I think that someone is in that room. Daniel glanced over his shoulder one last time before shutting the door to the records room. The space was cramped, with metal filing cabinets lining the walls and a single desk wedged in the corner. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, casting everything in a harsh glow. We shouldn't stay long, he whispered, pulling out a chair for Vanessa. People will notice. Through the frosted glass of the door, shadows moved past. The office was alive with whispers about the new intern who had dared to challenge Gregory Hale. How long have you worked here, Daniel? Vanessa asked, setting her notebook on the desk. He sank into the chair opposite her. 22 years. Started when this was still Parker Financial, before Halcyon bought us. His fingers drummed nervously on his knee. Back then, things were different. When did it change? Vanessa's voice was calm, direct. Gregory came in 5 years ago. Brought Elaine with him a year later. Daniel leaned forward, lowering his voice even more. First, it was just the usual office politics. Then people started disappearing. Disappearing? Not literally, Daniel clarified. First it was James from accounting. Black guy. Been here 15 years. Gregory said his style wasn't a good fit anymore. Then Maria got pushed out after questioning some expense reports. Then Diane, who was only a few years from retirement. Vanessa's expression remained neutral. And no one reported this? To who? Elaine? Daniel's laugh was bitter. 3 different people filed complaints. Each one mysteriously disappeared from the system. 2 weeks later, those employees were gone too. Outside, someone laughed loudly. Daniel flinched. I need facts, Daniel. Not office gossip, Vanessa said firmly. You mentioned financial discrepancies. What exactly have you seen? Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded paper. It started with vendor payments. Small ones at first. 5,000 here, 12,000 there. Always to a company called Meridian Consulting. Who are they? That's just it. They barely exist. I checked. They have a website with stock photos and a P.O. box. Daniel unfolded the paper, revealing a spreadsheet with highlighted rows. But they've received over $870,000 in the past 18 months. All approved by Gregory, all coded as Special Project Consultation. Vanessa studied the numbers. You've been tracking this. I had to. Nobody else would. His voice cracked slightly. I don't have proof of where the money ends up. Just pieces that don't fit. Why would you risk your job sharing this with me? Vanessa asked, looking directly into his eyes. Daniel hesitated. Because you saw it too. In those few seconds with the binder. He shook his head. Nobody notices these things unless they're looking for them. Vanessa sat back. I came to this office for a reason, Daniel. The board insists this branch is their strongest performer, despite anonymous warnings suggesting otherwise. I needed to see the culture firsthand. Daniel's eyebrows shot up. The board? You're not really an intern, are you? Before Vanessa could answer, the door swung open. Elaine Porter stood in the doorway, her smile tight and professional. Well, this is unexpected, she said, eyes moving from Vanessa to Daniel. Interns aren't permitted in the financial records room. Her gaze lingered on Vanessa. Especially unsupervised. I was just showing her where to find supply requisition forms, Daniel said quickly, his earlier courage evaporating. Is that right? Elaine's tone was honey-coated steel. Because it looked like a rather intense conversation from outside. She stepped closer to Vanessa. We've had some concerns about your approach today. First interrupting the meeting, now cornering a senior employee in a restricted area. I didn't corner anyone, Vanessa replied evenly. That's not how it appears. Elaine's smile never wavered. You know, there's a certain way we communicate here at Halcyon. Professional. Measured. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Not aggressive or intimidating. The word choice hung in the air, loaded with unspoken accusations. Daniel's shoulders hunched. He stood quickly. I should get back to my desk. Quarterly reports due. He wouldn't meet Vanessa's eyes as he slipped past Elaine. Smart man, Elaine murmured, watching him go. Now, Ms. Brooks, there's an all-staff town hall at noon in the main conference room. Mandatory attendance. She checked her watch. That gives you exactly 43 minutes to reflect on whether this internship is the right fit for you. Is there a special occasion for the town hall? Vanessa asked. A leadership announcement. Elaine's smile widened. Gregory will be addressing some organizational concerns. As if summoned by his name, Gregory appeared in the hallway behind Elaine. He glanced into the room, his eyes landing on Vanessa. A smirk spread across his face, the look of a man who believed victory was already his. See you at noon, Brooks, he called, not bothering to hide his satisfaction. Don't be late. It's quite the show you won't want to miss. Elaine gave Vanessa one last measured look before pulling the door shut. leaving her alone with the files, the buzzing light, and the growing tension of what awaited at noon. The conference room filled quickly as noon approached. Employees shuffled in with coffee cups and notebooks, expecting another routine corporate presentation. Conversations hummed with speculation about the special announcement, perhaps budget cuts or a new marketing initiative. Gregory Hale stood near the front of the room, arms crossed, radiating confidence. His inner circle gathered around him, exchanging knowing glances. He kept glancing toward the door, clearly anticipating Vanessa's arrival. "This should be good," he muttered to a colleague. "Maybe our mature intern will learn how a real company operates." Vanessa entered quietly from the side door. She had changed into a crisp black blazer she'd pulled from her leather portfolio. Her hair was now pulled back neatly, her stance more commanding. A few people noticed the transformation, but most were too busy finding seats to pay attention. Elaine Porter stood near the video conference setup, reviewing notes on her tablet. She nodded curtly to Gregory before addressing the room. "Everyone, please take your seats. We're connecting with corporate headquarters momentarily." Her voice carried practiced authority. "Mr. Hale will provide context after the board representative's introduction." Gregory nodded, straightening his tie. "I'm sure we'll all find today's announcement clarifying." His eyes found Vanessa standing against the wall, and his mouth curled into a smirk. The large screen at the front of the room flickered to life. A silver-haired man in an expensive suit appeared, his expression serious. "Good afternoon, Halcyon Global Marketing Division. I'm Thomas Whitfield, chairman of the board. Today marks a significant transition in our company's leadership." Gregory shifted his weight, ready to step forward. "After careful consideration, our board has appointed a new majority stakeholder and chief executive officer. In an unprecedented move, our new CEO chose to visit several branches unannounced before formally assuming command." Murmurs rippled through the room. Employees exchanged confused glances. This approach was designed to observe our corporate culture honestly, without the performance that often accompanies executive visits. Gregory's smile began to falter. "I'm pleased to introduce our new CEO, who I believe is already with you today." All eyes moved to the door, expecting someone to enter. Instead, Vanessa calmly walked toward the front of the room. She passed Gregory without acknowledging him and took the empty chair at the head of the conference table. "Thank you, Thomas," she said, her voice clear and steady. The room went completely silent. Gregory's face drained of color. "For those who haven't been formally introduced, I am Vanessa Brooks." She placed her intern badge on the table. "This morning, I arrived as an observer, not an intern. I wanted to experience this office as an everyday employee might." Elaine's tablet slipped from her fingers, clattering against the table. The sound echoed in the silent room. "But surely this is some kind of—" Gregory began, forcing a laugh. "No, Mr. Hale, this is not a joke or a misunderstanding." Vanessa's tone cut through his attempt at deflection. "In the 4 hours I spent as your supposed intern, I witnessed behavior that violates not just our company policies, but basic professional standards." She stood, commanding the room's attention. "At 9:17 this morning, Mr. Hale deliberately spilled coffee on me and encouraged others to laugh. At 10:30, he intentionally set me up for public humiliation by demanding I present material I had never seen. When that backfired, he accused me of stealing someone else's work. Faces around the room showed shock, embarrassment, and, in some cases, vindication. Ms. Porter from Human Resources witnessed these events and not only failed to intervene, but actively participated in intimidation tactics in the records room just 40 minutes ago." Elaine's mouth opened and closed wordlessly. "I've been in this office less than half a day," Vanessa continued, "and I've already documented multiple instances of discrimination, harassment, and possible financial impropriety." Gregory's false smile vanished entirely. "Now wait, just a minute. No, Mr. Hale, you've done enough talking today." Vanessa turned to address the entire room. "Effective immediately, I am initiating a full internal review of this branch's operations, management practices, and financial records. All electronic communications, files, and records are to be preserved. Nothing is to be deleted or altered." She paused, making eye contact with several employees who had witnessed the morning's events. "I believe in this company's potential, but I cannot and will not tolerate the culture I experienced today. This is not about one bad day or one bad manager. This is about systemic issues that we will address openly and honestly." Thomas Whitfield nodded on the screen. "The board fully supports Ms. Brooks's authority in this matter. We expect complete cooperation from all staff." As the meeting broke, people rose in stunned silence. Some couldn't look at Gregory or Elaine, while others couldn't stop staring. Daniel Reeves stood at the back, his expression a mixture of shock and relief. Vanessa gathered her materials calmly, watching as the room slowly emptied. From the corner of her eye, she noticed Gregory pulling out his phone, fingers frantically typing a message. His eyes darted toward the door, then back to his screen. The revelation had landed, but something in Gregory's demeanor told Vanessa that exposure alone wouldn't stop him. He was already activating some kind of backup plan. An hour later, Vanessa sat behind the wide mahogany desk in the branch director's office. She had claimed the space without fanfare, simply walking in and setting down her portfolio after the town hall dispersed. The office felt like a stage set, with its carefully arranged golf trophies and generic motivational posters that revealed little about their owner beyond a desire to appear successful. She left the blinds half open. Every few minutes, employees would walk past, stealing glances through the slats. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to concern to calculation. Vanessa understood the power of visibility. Let them look. Let them see that change had arrived and wasn't hiding behind closed doors. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. Daniel Reeves entered, carrying a stack of file folders and 2 bottles of water. His hands trembled slightly as he placed everything on the desk. "I pulled the preliminary finance summaries you asked for," he said, his voice steadier than his hands. "Last 3 quarters. "Thank you, Daniel." Vanessa twisted the cap off one bottle and took a sip. "Have people been talking?" Daniel's smile was thin. "Nothing but. Though the tone has certainly changed." Outside the office, employees moved with stiff politeness. The laughter that had erupted so freely during the coffee incident was nowhere to be heard. People spoke in hushed tones, eyes darting toward the office whenever they passed. "I've scheduled interviews beginning in 15 minutes, Vanessa said. "One-on-one with key staff members. I want to hear directly from people before anyone has time to coordinate stories." Daniel nodded. "Smart. Gregory's already making rounds, telling people this is just a temporary disruption." "Let's make sure it's permanent," Vanessa replied. The afternoon unfolded in a series of closed-door conversations. Vanessa interviewed 8 employees before 5 o'clock. 3 apologized for staying silent that morning. One woman, Lisa from marketing, had tears in her eyes. "I should have said something when he spilled that coffee," she whispered. But the last person who stood up to Gregory suddenly had performance issues in her file. Then she was gone. "Would you put that in a formal statement?" Vanessa asked. Lisa's eyes widened. I don't think I can. My husband lost his job last month. We need my paycheck and insurance." Vanessa saw the same pattern repeat. Apologies offered, wrongs acknowledged, but signatures withheld. Fear had done its work in this office. At 3:30, Elaine Porter knocked and entered without waiting for a response. She carried a leather portfolio similar to Vanessa's and wore what could only be described as a professional, legalistic smile. "Ms. Brooks," she said, sitting across from Vanessa. "I think we should discuss how to handle this unfortunate situation." "Which situation would that be, Ms. Porter?" Vanessa kept her voice neutral. Elaine's smile didn't waver. "This morning's regrettable misunderstanding with Gregory. I've prepared some talking points for tomorrow's follow-up meeting that should smooth things over." She slid a document across the desk. Vanessa glanced at the title, "Addressing Perception Gaps in Leadership Transition." "I'm concerned you might overreact emotionally," Elaine continued. "Understandable, given it's your first day, and you experienced what felt like disrespect. But Gregory has an excellent track record of developing talent." There it was, the full playbook. Diminish the harm. Frame legitimate anger as emotional instability. Repackage discrimination as miscommunication. Protect the hierarchy at all costs. "Ms. Porter, do you believe pouring coffee on an employee constitutes a perception gap?" Elaine's smile tightened. "Accidents happen in busy environments." "It wasn't an accident," Vanessa interrupted. "And we both know it." The conversation ended with Elaine suggesting Vanessa take time to understand the culture before making hasty judgments. By 4 o'clock, Daniel returned with more troubling information. "I found irregular payments to a vendor called Northgate Consulting," he explained, pointing to highlighted entries. 3 times the market rate for services that don't match our actual needs. But the supporting documentation is missing from our system." "Who approved these payments?" Vanessa asked. "That's just it. The approval chain shows Gregory's signature, but the detailed records that would explain what services they provided, those files aren't where they should be." Through the blinds, Vanessa observed Gregory moving through the office. His posture conveyed wounded dignity. She caught fragments of his conversations. Embarrassing setup. Tricked everyone. Temporary disruption. He was rebuilding his narrative, person by person. As evening approached, a knock came at the door. The IT director entered, his expression grave. "Ms. Brooks, I need to report something concerning," he said, closing the door behind him. "Someone attempted to delete archived expense approvals from our secure server approximately 7 minutes after the town hall meeting ended." "Were they successful?" Vanessa asked sharply. "No. Our backup systems flagged the attempt, but whoever did it knew exactly which files they wanted to remove." Vanessa looked at Daniel, then back at the IT director. "I need those files secured immediately. And I need to know who tried to delete them." The culture wasn't just one man's problem. It was a coordinated shield, already moving to protect itself. "We need to secure those files now," Vanessa said, rising from her chair, "before anything else disappears." The IT director nodded sharply. "The server room is in the basement level. We should go immediately." Daniel gathered his notes. "I'll bring what I've found so far." They moved quickly through the office. The clock showed 5:15 p.m. Most employees were packing up, but Vanessa noticed small clusters lingering by doorways, watching with barely concealed curiosity. Conversations dropped to whispers as they passed. Gregory's office sat empty, his computer screen dark. "Where's Mr. Hale?" Vanessa asked. "He mentioned a client dinner," someone offered too quickly. The absence made Vanessa more alert, not less. Gregory's tactical retreat felt calculated. The server room hummed with cooling fans when they arrived. Blue-white lights from equipment racks cast harsh shadows across their faces. The IT director's fingers flew across the keyboard at a workstation. "Here's the deletion attempt," he said, pointing to a log on the screen. "Timestamp matches 7 minutes after the town hall. User credentials belong to Meredith Jenkins," Daniel read, "Gregory's executive assistant." "Could she have acted on her own?" Vanessa asked. The IT director shook his head. "These specific financial archives aren't something she'd normally access. The search was too targeted. Whoever did this knew exactly which files to look for. Can you recover what they were trying to delete? Vanessa leaned closer. Already done. The system flagged it before anything permanent happened. Files appeared on screen. Vendor payment histories, contract approvals, expense reports, all connected to Northgate Consulting. Daniel pointed to recurring payments. Look at these amounts: $49,500, $48,750, $49,200. All just below the $50,000 threshold that triggers automatic board review. Deliberate, Vanessa said. What do we know about Northgate? Daniel pulled papers from his folder. I made some calls while you were interviewing staff. Northgate has a rented address but no permanent employees. Their website shows stock photos of consultants you can find on free image sites. The company was formed 4 years ago, right after Gregory took over this division. The elevator doors opened behind them. Elaine Porter stepped into the server room, her face a mask of professional concern. Ms. Brooks, I was informed you're accessing confidential records without proper protocols, she said. As HR director, I need to caution against hasty. We've discovered attempted deletion of financial records, Vanessa interrupted. Using credentials from Gregory's assistant. That could be an accident, Elaine said smoothly. Many staff members share login information against policy. This is exactly why we should handle this internally before jumping to conclusions. This wasn't an accident. Vanessa pulled up 2 personnel files the IT director had recovered. These former employees, both black, both with excellent performance records, until Gregory became their manager. Both filed discrimination complaints. Elaine's professional smile flickered. Those matters were resolved according to company policy. Without interviews? Without investigation? Vanessa scrolled through the sparse documentation. Both complaints were closed within 48 hours, with a note saying, "No evidence of discriminatory intent found." How is that possible without even speaking to the complainants? Our processes are confidential. Not from the CEO. Vanessa straightened. I'm sending legal preservation notices tonight to accounting, HR, and procurement. No more deletions. No more accidental losses. I'm also bringing in outside counsel. That's extremely premature, Elaine protested, her voice hardening. The board expects us to handle matters discreetly. External lawyers will create unnecessary alarm. The board will receive my preliminary findings tomorrow, Vanessa said. Discrimination, retaliation, financial fraud, and HR concealment, operating as an integrated system. The room fell silent, except for the hum of servers. Daniel spoke up. Northgate payments total, just over $2 million across 3 years. For services we can't verify were delivered. Vanessa pulled out her notebook and carefully documented everything they'd found, noting the time and those present. She took photos of key screens with her phone. Make backup copies of everything, she instructed the IT director. Store them on a separate system only you can access. It was past 7 p.m. when they finished. The building had emptied except for night security. Vanessa's throat felt dry after hours of talking. The weight of what they'd uncovered settled heavily between her shoulders. I'll walk you to your car, Daniel offered as they rode the elevator to the garage level. I appreciate your help today, Vanessa said. It took courage. Daniel shook his head. Not compared to what you did. The garage was dim, their footsteps echoing across concrete. They rounded the corner toward the executive parking section when Daniel suddenly stopped. What the? His voice caught. One of his file boxes lay on its side near Vanessa's reserved spot. The lid had been torn open, papers scattered across the concrete floor. Financial records, handwritten notes, and printed emails lay trampled and exposed. I left this locked in my office, Daniel whispered, behind a closed door. Vanessa surveyed the scene without touching anything. Not random vandalism, a message. They were being watched. The system was fighting back. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the parking garage. Papers lay scattered across the concrete floor like fallen leaves. Daniel knelt, his hands trembling as he gathered invoices and reports. "Who would do this?" His voice cracked. "These were locked in my office." Vanessa crouched beside him, methodically collecting documents. Her movements were measured, her face composed, but her eyes scanned every corner of the garage, looking for cameras or witnesses. "This isn't random," she said quietly. "Someone wanted to send a message." Daniel's fingers fumbled with a crumpled spreadsheet. "They're trying to scare me." "It's working!" Vanessa picked up a torn expense report. "Look at this!" The paper detailed a $4,800 dinner at Hartwell's Steakhouse, signed by Gregory Hale. The business purpose read, "Community Outreach Meeting, Local Minority Business Leaders." "I remember this dinner," Daniel said. There were no community leaders there. It was Gregory, 2 board members, and their golf buddies. Vanessa sorted through more papers. "And this?" She held up a Northgate invoice labeled Talent Management Solutions for $24,550, just below the $25,000 threshold that would trigger automatic review. "Ghost employees," Daniel whispered, "or payoffs. Northgate doesn't provide real services. I've looked. They have a rented mailbox and a phone number that goes to voicemail." His hands stilled on a folder. "I should have spoken up years ago." "Why didn't you?" Vanessa asked, not accusingly, but with genuine curiosity. Daniel sat back on his heels, suddenly looking much older. "I watched what happened to people who did. There was a woman, Lorraine Miles, brilliant marketing director, 20 years of experience. She noticed Gregory was pushing out older employees, especially black staff members. What happened to her? She filed a complaint. 2 weeks later, they found irregularities in her expense reports. Small things, a lunch receipt that was supposedly duplicate, a cab fare without proper documentation. They fired her for fraud. Daniel's voice dropped. "She told me before she left. He targets people he thinks are easy to isolate. I've been keeping my head down ever since." Vanessa gathered another stack of papers. "And keeping records, apparently." "Fat lot of good it did," Daniel muttered. "Don't be so sure." Vanessa held up her phone. "I'm taking pictures of everything, exactly as we found it." A car engine rumbled nearby, headlights sweeping across the wall. Footsteps echoed through the garage. "Everything all right here?" Gregory Hale's voice rang out, smooth with feigned concern. "Security mentioned someone was down here going through files." He stepped into the light, dressed in his tailored suit despite the late hour. His eyes widened in theatrical surprise. "Daniel, what happened? Did you drop these? Let me help you." He moved toward the papers. "Don't touch anything," Vanessa said firmly. "This is evidence now." Gregory's smile remained fixed, but his eyes hardened. "Evidence of what? An unfortunate accident?" "My office was locked," Daniel said, finding his voice. "These files were in my cabinet." Gregory shook his head. "You know how the cleaning staff can be. They probably moved things while dusting." He turned to Vanessa. "This is exactly what I was concerned about. The office has become chaotic since this morning's revelation." He looked directly at Daniel. "I'd be careful about mishandling confidential files, Daniel. At your age, finding another position would be challenging, especially with a termination for cause on your record." The threat hung in the air, polished but unmistakable. Vanessa stood slowly. "Are you threatening a whistleblower, Mr. Hale?" "Whistleblower?" Gregory laughed. "Over some misplaced papers? I'm simply concerned about proper protocols." He adjusted his cuffs. "The board values stability, Ms. Brooks. They've invested significantly in our current leadership structure." His confidence was telling. He believed someone above Vanessa would protect him. "We'll see what they value when the forensic accountants finish their work." Vanessa replied. Gregory's smile flickered. That seems excessive for a few accounting questions. This isn't about accounting anymore, Vanessa said. It's about intimidation, discrimination, and possible fraud. And breaking into an employee's office to destroy evidence. Wild accusations won't serve you well, Gregory said, his voice losing its pleasant edge. Not everyone appreciates your approach. He nodded curtly and walked away, his expensive shoes clicking on concrete. Daniel exhaled shakily. He's not worried at all. He should be, Vanessa said, helping Daniel to his feet. Document everything that happened here. I'll drive you home. In her hotel room at 10:45 p.m., Vanessa kicked off her shoes and sat on the edge of the bed. The day's events played through her mind like a film reel. She'd come to observe culture, not uncover potential criminal activity. She opened her laptop and drafted an email to Martinson Forensic Consulting, a firm specializing in corporate investigations. She requested their immediate presence at the office tomorrow morning, attaching photos of the scattered documents and a preliminary summary of her findings. Vanessa hit send, then made one more call. Lorraine Miles, please, she said when the call connected. Tell her it's Vanessa Brooks from Halcyon Global. She wouldn't wait for Gregory's protectors to circle the wagons. Tomorrow, the real investigation would begin. The morning sky hung gray and threatening as Vanessa pulled into the Halcyon Global parking lot. 3 unmarked vehicles followed her, parking in a neat row beside her car. From one emerged 4 people carrying laptop cases and document boxes. Martinson Forensic Consulting's team. From the others stepped 3 attorneys from Caldwell and Winston, specialists in employment law and corporate malfeasance. Everything moves quickly once we're inside, Vanessa told them. We have perhaps 90 minutes before the main staff arrives. The building felt different today. The polished surfaces that had seemed merely cold yesterday now felt hostile, as if the walls themselves were aligned against her. Security let them in with barely concealed curiosity. We'll need administrative access to all servers, said Marcus Delgado, the lead forensic specialist. And a secure room to establish our base. The conference room on the east side, Vanessa replied. I've already authorized everything with IT. They moved with practiced efficiency. Within 30 minutes, the forensic team had begun mirror imaging the company servers, preserving all data exactly as it existed. 2 attorneys stationed themselves in HR, reviewing personnel files and complaint records. The third began compiling a list of employees for formal interviews under legal hold. Vanessa watched the operation unfold from the glass-walled conference room, noting the time. Early arrivals would start filtering in soon. The elevator doors opened, and Daniel stepped out. He spotted Vanessa and hurried over, his eyes wide. You didn't waste time, he said quietly. Couldn't afford to, she replied. Gregory would have sanitized everything by noon. Daniel handed her a folder. These are my notes on the Northgate payments. I reconstructed what I could remember from the scattered files. The forensic team took the documents, logging them into evidence. The building was coming alive now, whispers spreading through cubicles as employees arrived and noticed the strangers. The elevator dinged again. Gregory stepped out, stopping abruptly at the sight of the activity. His face cycled through confusion, realization, and finally, fury. He strode toward the conference room, pushing the door open hard enough that it bounced against the wall. What the hell is this? He demanded, eyes darting between the strangers and their equipment. Vanessa stood. This is a formal corporate investigation, Mr. Hale. Financial auditors and employment counsel. You had no authority to— I have every authority, Vanessa cut him off. As CEO and majority stakeholder. Gregory's face reddened. This is nothing but a witch hunt. You're staging a purge because your feelings got hurt yesterday. He turned to the room of employees who were now openly watching. She's been here 1 day, and she's already trying to destroy what we've built. Is this the leadership we want? No one responded. Marcus continued his work, unfazed by the outburst. The elevator opened again, and Elaine Porter emerged, immediately assessing the situation. She approached with measured steps, her professional mask firmly in place. "Ms. Brooks," she said, voice pitched for calm reason. "This approach seems unnecessarily adversarial. We should discuss how this will impact employee morale and investor confidence before proceeding further." "Your concern is noted," Vanessa replied, without looking up from the documents before her. "But the investigation continues." Elaine's smile tightened. "The board will need to be consulted about such drastic measures." "They've been notified," Vanessa said, "as has the SEC, given the potential financial irregularities." Gregory's confident smirk faltered slightly at the mention of the Securities and Exchange Commission. By 10 a.m., the office had divided into nervous clusters. Some employees worked at their desks with forced normalcy. Others whispered in corners, watching the conference room. Vanessa stepped out to get water and noticed something on the break room bulletin board that hadn't been there earlier. A printed flyer with no signature. "Notice to employees. Yesterday, an outsider claimed to be our CEO after deliberately misleading staff about her identity. She has since launched attacks against respected leadership based on manufactured grievances. Ask yourself who benefits when we're divided by those playing the victim card to seize power. Stand with real halcyon leadership." The wording was careful. No direct mentions of race, but the dog whistles were unmistakable. Vanessa felt eyes on her as she took the flyer down. When she returned to the conference room, a young woman, Emma from marketing, according to her badge, approached hesitantly. "Ms. Brooks," she said softly, "I thought you should see this." She slid a phone across the table, showing a screenshot of an email. From Gregory Hale. To Department Supervisors. Subject: Client Presentations. Staff Selection. When selecting staff for client-facing roles, please remember, we need to present the image clients expect from Halcyon. Keep Jackson, Patel, and Williams in support roles for now. They're not the image the company wants to project. This stays between us. "He sent this last month," Emma whispered. "I saved it because it felt wrong." Vanessa nodded. "Thank you. This is important evidence." "Will I lose my job?" Emma asked. "No," Vanessa promised. "You'll be protected." Vanessa had enough. She instructed the employment attorney to set up in the small conference room for formal interviews. "Mr. Hale will be first," she said. "Tell him it's mandatory." 10 minutes later, Gregory walked into the interview room. Despite everything, he smiled as he took a seat across from Vanessa and the attorney, acting as though he still controlled the room. "Let's get this theater over with," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Some of us have real work to do." Just before noon, the conference room felt like a courtroom. Gregory Hale sat across from Vanessa, his posture relaxed, but his eyes sharp. The company attorney sat to Vanessa's right, a forensic accountant to her left. Their laptops were open, folders were stacked between them, and the door was closed with a meeting in progress sign. Gregory adjusted his cufflinks. "I have meetings scheduled with actual clients this afternoon, so let's not drag this out." "We'll take as long as needed," Vanessa said. She placed a photo on the table, a printout of her coffee-stained blouse from yesterday. "Let's start with this." Gregory chuckled. "An unfortunate accident. You were standing where you shouldn't have been." "3 witnesses say your arm moved deliberately," the attorney said. "They're mistaken." Gregory shrugged. "I've worked here 8 years. You've been CEO for a day. People are just trying to please the new boss." Vanessa moved to the next item. "You assigned me to organize supply cabinets while sending younger white interns to strategy sessions. You were never really an intern, were you?" Gregory's smile didn't reach his eyes. "You were playing a role. so normal protocols didn't apply. Interesting defense, Vanessa said. You're saying it's acceptable to discriminate against certain employees as long as they turn out not to be important later? Gregory's jaw tightened. I'm saying context matters. The forensic accountant slid forward a spreadsheet. Let's discuss Northgate Consulting. In the past 18 months, they've received $347,000 for vague services. Each payment falls just below the threshold requiring board approval. For the first time, Gregory's confidence wavered. His eyes darted to the paper, then away. I oversee dozens of vendors, he said. My team handles the details. If there's an issue with this particular company, you should speak with accounting. You personally approved every payment, the accountant said, turning his laptop to show Gregory's digital signature. I sign many things. That's delegation, Gregory insisted. This witch hunt is absurd. Vanessa took out Emma's screenshot and placed it on the table. Is this also delegation? Instructing supervisors to keep employees named Jackson, Patel, and Williams away from client-facing roles because they're not the image the company wants? Gregory stared at the email. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again. That's taken out of context. What's the proper context for excluding employees based on their names? Vanessa asked. Those individuals lacked presentation skills, Gregory stammered. It had nothing to do with... All three are people of color, the attorney noted. And all three had excellent performance reviews until they were suddenly restricted to back-office roles. Gregory's perfect composure cracked. A thin sheen of sweat appeared on his forehead. This is a setup, he hissed. Elaine will confirm everything was handled according to policy. Elaine is next for interview, Vanessa said calmly. She closed her folder and looked directly at Gregory. Effective immediately. You're placed on administrative suspension pending completion of this investigation. Please surrender your building access card and company devices before leaving. You can't do this, Gregory's voice rose. I built this branch. The decision is final, Vanessa said. Security will escort you to collect personal belongings. Gregory stood up so quickly his chair rolled backward and hit the wall. You'll regret this. The board knows what I've done for this company. Yes, Vanessa said quietly. Soon they will. After Gregory was escorted out, a ripple of disbelief spread through the office. Employees who had kept their heads down for years looked up. Some smiled hesitantly. Others still appeared scared. By mid-afternoon, 3 different staff members had quietly approached Vanessa to thank her. One woman admitted she'd almost quit after Gregory had belittled her presentation skills and moved her to data entry. Daniel caught Vanessa near the copy room. I never thought I'd see this day, he said, his voice low but hopeful. People are breathing again. Vanessa nodded, but noticed something odd. Elaine Porter was at her desk, typing calmly, without any visible concern that her closest ally had just been suspended. It seems too easy, Vanessa murmured. Maybe he really was that exposed, Daniel suggested. People like Gregory don't fall without a backup plan. Elaine's office sent a company-wide email. Notice: recent leadership changes have caused understandable confusion. While an internal review is ongoing, we caution against speculation or gossip that could damage our workplace community. Current measures are temporary as we evaluate concerns about management stability. Please direct any questions to HR rather than external parties. The message was clear. This wasn't justice, just corporate chaos. She's reframing everything, Daniel whispered, reading the email, making it sound like you're causing problems, not solving them. Vanessa checked her watch. Let's continue with those file recoveries. The afternoon crawled forward. The forensic team made progress linking Northgate payments to personal expenses, but key authorization documents remained missing. Vanessa's phone buzzed with an email from the board secretary. Urgent! Emergency board session scheduled for 7:30 p.m. tonight via secure video conference. Topic: Allegations regarding CEO Vanessa Brooks' conduct and fitness for leadership. Your presence is required. Details below. Vanessa's face revealed nothing as she read it, but her grip tightened on the phone. Gregory might be gone from the building, but the system protecting him was fighting back, faster and harder than she had anticipated. The rain drummed steadily against the windows of the conference room as Vanessa connected the large monitor for the emergency board call. Each drop hitting the glass sounded like a tiny warning. The boardroom felt cavernous at this hour. Most employees had left, leaving only the harsh fluorescent lights to cast long shadows across the empty chairs. Outside the door, Daniel paced with 2 coffee cups in hand, checking his watch every few minutes. His tie was loosened, and worry lines creased his forehead. He hadn't taken a sip from his own cup. Elaine Porter slipped into the room just 3 minutes before the call, her heels clicking against the floor with precise rhythm. She placed her tablet and notepad on the table, arranging them at perfect angles. As HR director, "I've been asked to join as liaison," she said, her voice professionally flat. "Standard protocol for leadership reviews." Vanessa nodded once but said nothing. The words "leadership review" told her everything she needed to know about how this had been framed. At exactly 7:30, the screen flickered to life. 12 board members appeared in neat squares, some in home offices, others in after-hours corporate spaces. Board Chair Martin Whitfield's face occupied the center position. "Let's begin this extraordinary session," Whitfield said, without pleasantries. "We've received disturbing reports about destabilizing actions at the Halcyon Global Eastern Branch." Vanessa leaned forward. "I'd like to clarify." "You'll have time to respond," Whitfield cut her off. "First, we need to understand the situation. Ms. Porter, please provide context." Elaine touched her screen and shared a timeline document. "Yesterday morning, CEO Brooks arrived at our branch disguised as an entry-level intern," she began. "Without informing branch leadership of her true identity, she participated in routine operations before revealing herself during our town hall, causing significant disruption." The timeline displayed sanitized bullet points. 8:15 a.m. Bond fee. Brooks arrives presenting false credentials. 10:30 a.m. Attends department meeting uninvited. 11:45 a.m. Makes unverified allegations about financial reports. 12 p.m. Reveals identity and assumes direct control. 1:30 p.m. Initiates unscheduled staff interrogations. 4:45 p.m. Orders access restriction to standard records. What was missing spoke volumes. No mention of Gregory pouring coffee on her, no reference to the discriminatory assignments, no record of the data deletion attempts. Following this intervention, Elaine continued, Ms. Brooks suspended Regional Manager Gregory Hale without proper investigation protocols. Employee morale has plummeted, and operations are in disarray. Board member Regina Chen frowned. "Ms. Brooks, this approach seems needlessly theatrical. Why not conduct a proper audit?" "Because proper audits have been compromised before," Vanessa answered evenly. "Anonymous complaints about this branch have been dismissed 3 times in the past year. I witnessed discrimination, harassment, and evidence tampering firsthand within hours of arrival." "That's a serious characterization," another board member interjected. "We have a 14-year manager being publicly humiliated without due process." Whitfield cleared his throat. "There's another matter. Legal has informed us that an anonymous source has provided materials to the Financial Times suggesting this entire undercover boss scenario was a staged trap. The implication is that you created false pretenses to target specific employees." The accusation hung in the air. Vanessa felt the room tilt slightly. "That's categorically false," she said. "Every observation I made is documented." "Nevertheless," Whitfield continued, "the board feels immediate action is necessary to stabilize operations. We're temporarily reinstating Mr. Hale pending a structured review. Additionally, your authority over personnel decisions at this branch will require board approval until this matter is resolved." Vanessa's face remained composed, but her knuckles whitened as she gripped her pen. "You're reversing the suspension of a manager who physically assaulted me in front of witnesses." "Assault is not the characterization in our reports," Elaine interjected smoothly. "Our documentation indicates a minor accident with a coffee cup that was immediately addressed." The call ended 40 minutes later, with the board's decision unchanged. Vanessa sat motionless as the screen went dark, reflecting her own image back at her. Before she could gather her thoughts, her phone buzzed with an HR notification. She opened it to find termination paperwork for Daniel Reeves, citing unauthorized access to confidential materials and breach of information security protocols. The timestamp showed it had been processed 5 minutes ago, while she was still in the meeting. When she stepped out of the conference room, Daniel was standing there with a human resources representative beside him. His face was ashen. They just fired me," he said, disbelief evident in his voice. 26 years with this company." Other late-working employees watched from behind cubicle walls and partially open doors. The message was unmistakable. "This is what happens when you help the wrong side." "I'm sorry, Daniel," Vanessa said, keeping her voice steady despite the fury building inside her. "You have 30 minutes to collect personal items," the HR representative said mechanically. "I'll need your badge and laptop before you leave." Vanessa stood in the lobby watching as Daniel walked through the revolving doors, a cardboard box of desk photos and coffee mugs in his arms. The rain had intensified, drumming against the glass facade in sheets. Through the downpour, she could see Gregory's car pulling into a reserved space, already returning to reclaim his territory. The system hadn't just protected itself, it had counterattacked with devastating efficiency. They'd outmaneuvered her in public, undermined her within the company, and made an example of the one person brave enough to stand with her. Vanessa watched the rain for another long moment. Something in her expression shifted, from shock to resolve. The next move couldn't be incremental. The entire shield would have to come down at once. Rain hammered against the windshield of Vanessa's car, turning the parking garage lights into blurred halos. Daniel sat in the passenger seat, the cardboard box of personal belongings balanced awkwardly on his knees. His eyes were fixed on the building where he'd worked for more than 2 decades. "I'm so sorry," he said, voice barely audible above the storm. "I should have been more careful with those files. Now I've dragged you deeper into this mess." Vanessa turned to him, her face illuminated by the soft blue glow of the dashboard. "Daniel, don't go home yet. There's something you need to know." She reached into her briefcase and pulled out a thin file folder. Her calm demeanor had shifted subtly, not rattled by defeat, but focused with purpose. "What you saw in there wasn't a failure," she said. "It was confirmation." Daniel frowned. "Confirmation? They just reinstated Gregory after he poured coffee on you. They fired me for helping you. How is that anything but them winning? Because now we know exactly who's protecting him and how far they'll go." Vanessa opened the folder. "I didn't walk into Halcyon Global unprotected, Daniel. I never intended to." She handed him several documents with official letterheads. His eyes widened as he scanned the first page. "This is a contract with Westbrook Forensic Consultants, dated 3 weeks ago?" Vanessa nodded. "Before I ever set foot in this building as an intern, I privately retained outside employment counsel, digital forensics experts, and a former federal investigator who specializes in corporate fraud." "But why?" The board made it sound like you created this undercover role on a whim. That's what they want people to believe. Vanessa wiped condensation from the window with her hand. 6 months ago, the company started receiving anonymous letters detailing both racial discrimination and financial irregularities at this branch. The board dismissed them as disgruntled employee complaints. I didn't. Daniel leaned back against the headrest, trying to process what he was hearing. So, coming in as an intern was a controlled legal strategy, Vanessa finished for him. I needed first-hand evidence of how this office functions when they think no one important is watching. And they gave me exactly what I needed. She pulled out her phone and opened a secure folder. The coffee incident? Captured on security cameras I formally requested, preserved within an hour. The discriminatory task assignments? Documented in real-time voice memos I recorded after each interaction. Gregory's comments about keeping certain employees away from clients? Preserved as evidence. Daniel shook his head in disbelief. What about the board? They just shut you down. Not the entire board. Vanessa showed him email correspondence with 3 board members. Key directors knew about my observational authority before I started. I informed them I would be testing branch culture directly and would report findings. Rain pounded harder as Daniel finally understood. So when Gregory and Elaine went to the board claiming you blindsided everyone, they exposed which board members are protecting this behavior. Vanessa's eyes flashed with determination. They moved too fast, Daniel. Firing you was a mistake. It's textbook retaliation under employment law. What happens now? Daniel asked, his voice stronger. Now we bring in what they're not expecting. Outside witnesses and hard evidence they can't control. Vanessa pulled out another document. Tomorrow morning, my forensic team delivers their preliminary findings on the Northgate financial connections. The attempted deletion of records is already documented and preserved off-site. Daniel stared at the building where, just an hour ago, he'd felt utterly defeated. They think they won tonight. That's exactly what I needed them to think. Vanessa's phone buzzed with an incoming message. She read it, and a small, satisfied smile crossed her face. Is that good news? Daniel asked. The best kind. Vanessa turned the screen toward him. Lorraine Miles has agreed to testify in person tomorrow morning. The employee Gregory forced out last year is coming back with her full documentation. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the car, the atmosphere had transformed. What had seemed like crushing defeat was revealed as a strategic chapter in a much larger plan. You never intended to handle this alone, Daniel said, finally understanding. Justice rarely comes from one person standing alone, Vanessa replied. It comes from bringing truth into the light, where everyone must see it. The clock on the dashboard ticked just past 11:30 p.m. Vanessa gathered her documents, her eyes fixed on the office building with resolute focus. Get some rest, Daniel, she said. Tomorrow will be a very different kind of day. The morning light slanted through the windows of the private conference suite, casting long rectangles across the polished table. Vanessa sat perfectly straight, her portfolio open, pen ready. Across from her, Lorraine Miles adjusted her glasses, her expression a mixture of determination and long-held anger finally finding its voice. 2 other former employees flanked her. Marcus Jennings, who had worked in procurement for 5 years, and Tanya Wilson, who had left the accounting department just 6 months earlier. Daniel sat at the end of the table, still wearing yesterday's rumpled shirt, exhaustion and purpose battling in his eyes. Thank you all for coming, Vanessa said, her voice steady. I know this isn't easy. Lorraine's fingers tapped against her own stack of documents. Easy stopped mattering a long time ago. What matters is that someone is finally listening. The legal team, 3 attorneys specializing in employment discrimination and corporate fraud, nodded and began recording the session. Please start from the beginning, Ms. Miles, said the lead attorney. Lorraine took a deep breath. I worked at Halcyon for 8 years. The pattern was always the same with Gregory. He'd start by questioning your work in public, never in private. If you were black, he'd add comments about your attitude or professional presentation. She pulled out a performance review with Gregory's handwriting. See here? He wrote that I was too aggressive in meetings when I simply asked the same questions my white colleagues asked. When I requested specific examples, he said I was being defensive. Daniel nodded. I saw it happen repeatedly. Tanya opened her laptop. He did the same to me. But there was more to it than just words. She pulled up a spreadsheet. For 3 quarters straight, Gregory assigned every major client presentation to white employees, even when they had less experience with the accounts. Lorraine continued, her voice growing stronger. When I complained to HR, Elaine Porter called it a perception issue. She suggested I needed to adapt to the company culture. Lorraine slid a letter across the table. Then came this offer, a small severance package with a confidentiality agreement. When I refused to sign, suddenly there were performance concerns in my file that had never existed before. The room fell silent for a moment as the attorneys took notes. Marcus cleared his throat. But the discrimination was just half of it. He placed a thick folder on the table. I worked in procurement. About 2 years ago, Gregory started pushing contracts through for a company called Northgate Consulting. The fees were consistently 30 to 40% above market rate. Vanessa leaned forward. And you questioned this? I tried. Marcus's voice was bitter. Gregory said they offered specialized services that justified the premium. When I kept asking, Elaine called me in for a discussion about my teamwork issues. He pulled out a public records document. It took me months after I left, but I finally found this. Northgate is registered to Michael Westfield. He's married to Gregory's sister, Cynthia Hale Westfield. Different last name. Easy to hide the connection. Vanessa's attorney examined the document, nodding slowly. This is the link we needed. Tanya opened another file on her laptop. I have the internal transfer records showing how they disguised the payments. Look here, they coded everything as strategic talent solutions, but there were never any deliverables. Over the past 3 years, nearly 1.8 million. Daniel pulled out his own notes. That matches the irregularities I found in the quarterly reports. The money was being siphoned from diversity initiatives and staff development programs. The legal team worked methodically, organizing statements, cross-referencing documents, building parallel case files. One for workplace discrimination, systematic, documented, targeting specific employees based on race and age. Another for financial fraud, tracing money from company accounts through Northgate and ultimately to Gregory's extended family. What had once been dismissed as isolated complaints was now revealed as a coordinated pattern. What had seemed like suspicious accounting was now exposed as deliberate fraud. This isn't just about Gregory, Lorraine said, her eyes meeting Vanessa's. The system protected him. Elaine buried complaints. Some board members must have known, or at least suspected. Vanessa nodded. Which is exactly why we're presenting all of this evidence to the full board this afternoon. Not asking permission, not negotiating, presenting facts. She stood and walked to the window, looking across at the Halcyon building. I've already notified them. 3 o'clock, with or without their approval. Marcus frowned. What if they refuse to meet? They won't, Vanessa said with quiet certainty. Half the board is already horrified by what I've shared. The others need to decide which side of history they want to stand on. Her phone buzzed with an incoming message. Vanessa picked it up, her expression shifting from determination to cold satisfaction. Security just sent over the footage from my first day, she said, turning her laptop toward the group. Let's see what the cameras caught. The screen showed the conference room from 2 days before. Gregory stood near Vanessa, coffee cup in hand. The group watched in silence as he turned, his elbow extending in a deliberate motion. Not accidental, not clumsy, pushing the cup directly toward her blouse. His smile, caught in high definition, showed not surprise but satisfaction as the coffee spilled. "He did that on purpose," Tanya whispered. "Yes," Vanessa said. "And now everyone will see exactly what happened." The clock on the wall showed 12. In 3 hours, the final confrontation would begin. The boardroom felt like a courtroom. Tension hung in the air, thick enough to touch. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, catching dust particles that danced in the light. 15 board members sat around the massive oak table, with another 7 joining by secure video conference on the wall-mounted screens. Gregory had chosen his seat carefully, 3 spaces from the head of the table, his posture relaxed but alert. His navy suit looked freshly pressed, his smile practiced and confident. He nodded to several board members, an insider's greeting that said, "I belong here." She doesn't. Elaine Porter sat beside the company's chief legal counsel, a leather portfolio open before her. She wore a gray suit and pearl earrings, the picture of corporate respectability. Her face betrayed nothing. The door opened and heads turned. Vanessa entered first, followed by her legal team, the forensic investigator Daniel and Lorraine. Gregory's smile faltered for just a moment before returning, tighter than before. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Vanessa said, taking her place at the head of the table. "I won't waste time. What you're about to see represents evidence of discrimination, harassment, financial fraud, and deliberate attempts to obstruct an internal investigation." She nodded to her team. The lights dimmed slightly as the projector came on. "First, let's address Mr. Hale's conduct toward me personally." The security footage appeared on screen, crystal clear from multiple angles. Gregory standing near Vanessa, turning with calculated precision, his elbow extending in a deliberate motion. The coffee spilling across her blouse. His smile, unmistakable and damning. "That was no accident," said a board member on the video screen. Gregory shifted in his seat. "Camera angles can be deceiving." "Play it again," requested another board member. They watched it 3 times. Each viewing made it more obvious. Several board members were now staring at Gregory with open disgust. "Now, the pattern of discrimination," Vanessa continued. Staff assignment logs appeared on screen. Charts showing how black employees and workers over 40 were consistently assigned to support roles, administrative tasks, and behind-the-scenes projects, while younger, white employees received client-facing opportunities and advancement tracks. Lorraine Miles stood. Her voice was steady but charged with emotion. "I worked at Halcyon for 7 years. I was passed over for promotion 4 times, despite consistently outperforming my colleagues. When I finally complained, Mr. Hale told me I lacked polish. When I asked what that meant, he said I should understand what clients expect to see representing the company." The screenshot appeared next. Gregory's email instructing managers to keep certain employees away from client-facing roles because they didn't represent the image the company wants. "These weren't isolated incidents," Daniel added, standing beside Lorraine. "It was systematic. Anyone who spoke up was labeled difficult or unprofessional. Eventually, they were pushed out." Elaine leaned forward. "These are serious allegations, but they lack context." "Context?" Vanessa interrupted. "Let's provide that context." The next slides showed HR complaints filed by former employees, all marked resolved without investigation, all buried by Elaine Porter. The boardroom grew uncomfortably quiet. Gregory's confidence was cracking. Elaine's composure remained, but her knuckles had turned white around her pen. "And now, the financial evidence," Vanessa said. The forensic investigator took over, presenting contracts, bank records, and a detailed organizational chart showing Northgate Consulting's true ownership, traced directly to Gregory's brother-in-law. Over the past 3 years, approximately $1.8 million was diverted through this shell company, she explained. The payments were deliberately structured to fall below automatic review thresholds. Gregory stood abruptly. This is a witch hunt. She came here with an agenda. Sit down, Mr. Hale, ordered the board chairman. His voice was ice-cold. The investigator continued, displaying access logs showing the attempted deletion of financial records minutes after Vanessa revealed her identity. These deletions were initiated using credentials tied to Mr. Hale's assistant, but the timing and pattern suggest direct involvement from Mr. Hale himself. Gregory's face had gone pale. This is vindictive. She's twisting everything. The timestamps don't lie, the investigator replied calmly. Nor do the recovered emails ordering these records be cleaned up before anyone could review them. Several board members were now openly taking notes. Others sat in stunned silence. The mood had shifted dramatically, from skepticism toward Vanessa to fury at what had been happening under their watch. One of the senior board members turned to Elaine. Did you know about any of this? Before she could answer, Vanessa placed another document on the table. Ms. Porter's signature appears on 17 separate approvals related to Northgate contracts. She also personally handled the termination of 3 employees who raised concerns about these payments. The board chairman stood. I've seen enough. He pressed a button on the table. Security, please come to the main boardroom. He looked directly at Gregory, then at Elaine. The board will need to vote, but I believe our path forward is clear. 2 security officers entered the room as the chairman called for a vote. Those in favor of terminating Gregory Hale for cause, effective immediately, and referring this matter to the proper authorities for potential criminal prosecution? Hands rose around the table. On the screens, board members raised their hands as well. Unanimous, the chairman declared. By late afternoon on the 3rd day, Gregory Hale was escorted from the building by security. He carried nothing, no box of possessions, no personal items. His access cards had been deactivated, his email shut down, his authority stripped away in front of everyone. Employees stood in doorways and hallways, watching in stunned silence as the man who had tormented so many walked out with nothing but the suit on his back. His face was tight with fury, but there was nowhere to direct it, no one to intimidate, no power left to wield. Behind him, in the HR suite, Elaine Porter was cleaning out her desk. Her resignation had not been optional. The board chairman had made it clear, resign immediately or be terminated with cause. She chose the former, her hands shaking as she packed away family photos and awards for excellence in workplace culture. Awards that now seemed like cruel jokes. Ms. Porter, Vanessa said from the doorway, the legal team will need to speak with you before you leave today. Elaine looked up, her composure finally breaking. This isn't fair. I was just doing my job. Your job was to protect employees, not predators, Vanessa replied calmly. The State Labor Board and Ethics Commission will receive our complete findings by tomorrow morning. The news traveled through the building like electricity. People whispered in break rooms, texted under desks, and called former colleagues who had been pushed out. By the end of the day, everyone knew. The system that had protected Gregory and punished honesty had collapsed completely. Daniel Reeves stood in Vanessa's office, still processing what had happened. I'd like to officially reverse your termination, Vanessa told him, sliding a document across the desk. Full restoration of pay and benefits, with a formal apology added to your file. Daniel stared at the paper. Just like that? Just like that, Vanessa confirmed. And I'd like to offer you a new position, Senior Director of Compliance. You'd oversee our new transparency measures until your retirement, whenever you choose that to be. Daniel's eyes widened. I don't know what to say. You don't have to decide right now, Vanessa said. But I need people with integrity to help rebuild this place. At 4 o'clock, Vanessa called an all-staff meeting. The conference room, the same one where Gregory had poured coffee on her just 3 days earlier, was packed. People stood against walls, crowded doorways. Starting today, this branch will undergo complete restructuring, Vanessa announced. An independent HR team will review all personnel files, complaints, and promotion decisions from the past 5 years. Any employee who was unfairly treated, demoted, or pushed out will be contacted about potential restitution. She paused, looking around the room. Some people avoided her eyes. Others nodded with tentative hope. We're also implementing mandatory promotion audits and anonymous reporting channels monitored by our corporate ethics office, not by anyone in this building. A young black woman in the back raised her hand. What about the people who watched it happen and did nothing? The question hung heavy in the air. Many in the room had laughed when Gregory humiliated Vanessa. Others had turned away when colleagues were mistreated. Accountability isn't just for those who caused harm, Vanessa replied carefully. It's also for those who allowed it. But I'm not here to punish people for their past silence. I'm here to ensure no one feels they need to be silent again. The meeting continued with questions about changes, timelines, and next steps. There was fear in the room, but also relief. For the first time, many employees felt they could speak without retribution. After everyone left, Vanessa walked slowly around the empty conference room. She paused at the spot where the coffee had soaked through her blouse. The memory was still fresh. The laughter, the humiliation Gregory had intended, the calculated cruelty. But now the space felt different. The power dynamics had been rewritten. Justice, for once, had prevailed over protection and privilege. The branch wasn't healed, not yet. There were still uncomfortable conversations ahead, trust to rebuild, systems to reform. But the oppressors had faced real consequences. That alone was revolutionary. The following morning, Vanessa arrived early. She was reviewing files at a small table in the break room when a nervous new intern, a young man who'd started just that week, rushed in with a tray of coffee cups for his team meeting. As he hurried past Vanessa's table, his hands trembled, and one cup tipped precariously on the tray. Coffee sloshed dangerously close to the edge. Vanessa stood quickly and steadied the tray with gentle hands. The intern looked mortified, clearly afraid of what might happen. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Brooks. I didn't mean to." "Take your time," Vanessa said softly, helping him straighten the cups. Her smile was genuine, her eyes kind. "You're safe here." The words echoed in the small room. Simple words that should be ordinary, but had become revolutionary in this space. You're safe here. For the first time in years, it wasn't just an empty promise. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.